All right, everyone. The next chapter in line is the changing face of Indian democracy. Now, in the previous lesson, we have seen that there was a great threat to the Indian democracy in the form of emergency of the year 1975-76. And people thought that the democracy of the country is at threat. Let's revise. Why was the democracy at threat? Number one, suspension of fundamental rights. The sole power was in the hand of the prime minister, the parliament, not even the parliament, the prime minister. There was hardly any opposition. And the fourth pillar of democracy, press, media, their rights were taken, they were suspended, along with the majority other things which we saw in the previous chapter. So all this led together to a threat to the Indian democracy. And more or less, you will see that the entire country had Congress at every place. So all of this was posing a threat to the democracy of the country. People thought that Congress is now, rather than being a fairly elected power, it is now becoming a dictator. It is practicing monarchical, government over here, rather than, being a democratic, government. So all of these things, they brought the opposition together. Okay, and in the face of democracy, where people were put behind bars, and how Indira Gandhi, she practically denied the claims on her election, and how she refused to obey the order of the Supreme Court, the High Court, the Allahabad High Court, how she passed the 42nd CAA. So she passed the 42nd CAA. All these things, they impacted the democracy of the country, which is why the next 2-3 years we saw that people, India itself, realized that it is very important for a democratic country like India to show the world that it is a democracy. That's when people took power in their hands. The elections that happened right thereafter, 1977, people took power in their hands, and the next government which was formed, Indira Gandhi's government, saw a major defeat and a major setback in this year, when she realized, or when the government realized, that if you try to tackle the democracy of the country, people are going to retaliate. People are going to come back, and they are going to fight for their rights. And that's what happened in the year 1977, when the Janata Party came to power. Now see, the next largest party after Congress, Janata Party, I couldn't say it was the largest party, because in 77 it was all the opposition members who were united against Indira Gandhi's government, practically because they had seen what she was doing during the emergency phase. So to tackle that thing, these people, they came together. We saw the JP movement, where Jayaprakash Narayan, he had stepped into the politics. Jayaprakash Narayan, I told you, the freedom fighter. And his main aim was social work. He had no political interest. So he stepped into the struggle for democracy, just to make sure that Indira Gandhi's government, Indira Gandhi, who had practically been like a kid to JP Narayan, her government is not attacking the faith, the democracy of the country. Okay, so Jayaprakash Narayan led the movement against Indira Gandhi. He was arrested, he was put behind the bars along with the other few people. Okay, on his insistence, after the proclamation of, after the lifting of emergency, actually 1977, emergency was not lifted. Technically, the emergency was not lifted. So we had to have elections over here. And on JP Narayan's insistence, all the opposition leaders, they came together to form the Janata Party. Okay. Morarji Desai, he became the first party chairman of the Janata Party. Ram Krishna Hegde, he became the general secretary of the Janata Party. And Lal Krishna Advani, first party spokesperson. On the other hand, you will say that Communist Party of India, the Marxist side, it announced that it's not going to run any candidate against the Janata Party. Not because it wasn't competitive enough, but it did want to put it. All the oppositions had already united. So of course they are going to put a strong front. No need to divide the votes once again so that once again Congress comes to powers. So CPI did not want to actually, divide the votes, and the other parties, they united and they formed a strong front. Now, when we come to Janata Party government, it did a lot of things while it was there in the power. It was very short time, 2 years practically, it was there in power. But in those not even 2 years, it did some commendable jobs, like, see, whether it did commendable jobs or not, that's a later thing. But what comes in mind first, the coming of Janata Party, it had given you a lot of, what do we say? It had given Congress a threat. It had told people that Congress is defeatable. Okay? And the feat that this Janata Party actually accomplished was the national, the national, the cultural unity, okay, of the country. Of course, the party members were not able to stay united for long. That was one such reason why Janata Party could not sustain for long. But there was cultural unity over here. There were a lot of major decisions taken, like the Mandal Commission that was created. There were a lot of issues which were brought forward during the Janata Party rule, which hadn't been addressed during the Congress rule. Like the very first issue of the backward classes, Dalits, okay, the minorities, okay, setting up of the Mandal Commission, and all the decisions taken for the Mandal Commission, the Indra Sawhney case, all these things had been decided and done. I mean, they had gotten a beginning from the Janata Party government, from the rule of Janata Party government. So their rule, though it was short-lived, it was a prominent one. Okay. The Janata Party, as it came to power, it reversed the emergency. It uplifted the emergency. Number one, it uplifted the emergency. It then reversed the emergency era decisions. Whatever decision Mrs. Gandhi took during her tenure of emergency, those decisions were reversed by the Janata Party government, and investigations were started into the emergency era abuses. What abuses? The abuses that Mrs. Gandhi rendered on people. The illegal, putting of people behind the bars. Okay, shutting off press. A great threat to democracy it was, and all these issues were addressed during this time. Constitution was amended to make it more difficult to be amended. Just for your information, Article 368 talks about the basic structure of the Constitution. Okay, and judiciary, time and again, starting from the Keswananda Bharti case to now, it has time and again said that the basic structure of the Constitution cannot be amended. And the judiciary, time and again, has incorporated a lot of things in this basic structure. Preamble, the basic structure. Judicial review, independence of judiciary, all these come within basic structure. So they cannot be amended. Okay? And these decisions were taken, like Keswananda Bharti case was 1973. But even after that, cases were put under the basic structure of the Constitution, which could not be amended. Okay? And I mean, if you want to amend them, see, basic structure cannot be amended. Under Article 368, if you want to amend any other clause of the Constitution, it requires a special case of majority. Okay, it has to go to states also and be ratified by them. So it's a long procedure that we have to cover up if we have to amend the Constitution. Okay. So Janata Party government made it more difficult, made the Constitution more difficult to be amended. Judiciary was made independent. See, democracies, basically, most of the times democracies, they have the three organs of the government segregated from each other. Number one, the three organs of the government, they keep each other in checks and balances. This is doctrine of checks and balances that goes on. They keep a check on each other. Okay. And one other important thing is that intervention could not be done. It's a watertight arrangement. Like American democracy, you will see it's a watertight arrangement. Indian democracy, on the other hand, you see that legislature, um, uh, executive and legislature, they are, somewhere they overlap. Judiciary doesn't. Okay, but other than that, executive and legislature do overlap. So we don't have a watertight arrangement, but we do have the system of checks and balances. Okay, so we wanted to make independent judiciary because this is another important component of this thing, a democracy. The Janata Party government dismissed 9 Congress-led state governments. This is what Congress used to do earlier, that wherever they had some other party, they technically used to remove the party and get its majority. That's what Janata Party did. So in whichever states we had Congress-led governments, the Janata Party government dissolved all those governments. Okay, and what did they do? They said that they need fresh elections, dissolving on certain clauses. State machinery is not functioning, and picking up any cause just to justify that the government is not able to function anymore, and they dissolved the government of that particular state, and they made the new JP government stand over there, except of course Tamil Nadu, where AIADMK was elected. Janata Party won in all the states. Number 2, in West Bengal also you will see CPM won the elections, but CPM was nothing but an ally of Janata Party. It didn't matter much. Okay. Considering all these things, Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy, he became the president of India. 44th Constitutional Amendment Act was passed and 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act was amended, something that Mrs. Gandhi had introduced during her tenure, adding the words socialist and secular, integrity to the constitution. They were amended over here. The rights of Supreme Court and High Court to decide the validity of central state legislature were also restored. That is what you are seeing today. Mrs. Gandhi said that, Supreme Court cannot intervene in the functioning of Parliament. But they have the power of judicial review. So any act passed by the Parliament, if it is deemed against the Constitution, it goes to Supreme Court. It's the Supreme Court which is, looking, or the High Court which is looking towards that particular act and saying that whether this act is in conformity with the Constitution or whether this act is against the Constitution. If it is against the Constitution, the act is declared null and void. So this particular power of Supreme Court and High Court, it was restored by the Janata Party government. Okay. The new government also tried to reorient the foreign policy of India, Pakistan, with the newly formed state of Bangladesh. Okay. We were trying to reorient our policy. The government also withdrew charges against 25 accused in Baroda dynamite case. Now, Baroda dynamite case was nothing. There was this case against George Fernandez. He was a Janata Party MP, and there was a case against him that he, along with 24 other people, they tried to they tried to plant dynamite during the emergency thing going on. Okay, so the case was registered against them by the Indira Gandhi government, but here the charges were withdrawn and these 25 accused were released. This was the Baroda dynamite case. 44th Amendment Act. I am sure you all know that earlier right to property was a fundamental right. Please make it a point. Earlier, right to property was a fundamental right. Now, it is not. Okay? Just to make it clear, right to vote, that is also not a fundamental right. That's a constitutional right. Right to property earlier was a fundamental right. Now it is no more. So property as a fundamental right was removed from the list of fundamental rights. The property was given the recognition of a legal request under Article 300A. So removing it from 31, we put it in 300A with the provision of not depriving any person of property by the law. The power to suspend the right to move the court to enforce a fundamental right cannot be exercised regarding the fundamental right to life and liberty. So, you cannot suspend the fundamental right to life and liberty. The power to suspend the right to move to the court and enforce a fundamental right cannot be exercised regarding the right to life and liberty. This was 44th Amendment Act. The Prime Act, Right to Life and Liberty, Article. Okay. So this particular act needs to be, see, during the tenure of Indira Gandhi, there were a lot of things which were done, which tackled the basic pillars of democracy. Okay, which wasn't supposed to be done, but they, what do we say? Indira Gandhi's government, it definitely did that. Okay, just to exercise its power. In the face of a democracy, you cannot do it. But Indira Gandhi's government, it did that. And that was the biggest flaw. Okay, later on, she realized her mistake. Also, she definitely asked for, she apologized to the nation. But she did learn her mistake. There was a big learning for her. The emergency. It's called the black phase, the darkest phase of Indian democracy. So one such thing that she did at the time was suspending right to life and liberty as well. So Janata Party government said that the power to suspend the right to move to the court to enforce a fundamental right cannot be exercised regarding the fundamental right to life and liberty. Which means that if right to life and liberty are being abridged, you do have the power to move the court. This power cannot be taken away from you. The provision further strengthens the right to liberty that a law for preventive detention cannot otherwise authorize in any case detention for a longer period than 2 months unless an advisory board has reported. Preventive Detention Act, 10th schedule of the Constitution. Sorry. No, Preventive Detention Act, I'm confused regarding the schedule. Please check it. I think it's Anti-Defection Law, which is 10th schedule. Yeah, Anti-Defection Law is 10th schedule, not Preventive Detention Act. So there's a Preventive Detention Act in the Constitution, and you cannot detain for a longer period than 2 months. What is this detention? Actually, let's say I feel that this particular person is going to commit a terrorist act. I mean, not let's say terrorist. For terrorism, there's a different this set of provisions. Let's say this particular person is going to commit murder in the next few days. So I ask for a detention of the police detains the person on the apprehension of murder, but the police cannot detain the person for longer than 2 months unless, of course, an advisory board has told you the same thing, has issued you permission to do it. Okay, an advisory board has said that yes, indeed the cause is sufficient to detain the person. Okay, and then you had the right of the media to freely report the proceedings in the parliament and state legislature without censorship. So you already have the Rajya Sabha TV, the Lok Sabha TVs now. So basically, media is now able to report the proceedings of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. That is through these rights. 44th Amendment Act. 42nd Amendment Act, it curtails the judicial. This was passed by Indira Gandhi government during emergency. It curtailed the judicial review of the High Court. It made precedent bound to the advice of the cabinet. It allowed center to deploy central forces in state to deal with the conflicting situations of law and order. Now, these were what situations? In case there was some other party jumping in over there, they practically wanted to remove the party, which is why they found all these tactics. This also gave special discretionary powers to the speakers of the Lok Sabha and Prime Minister. Speaker of the Lok Sabha and Prime Minister, they got special discretionary power. Upon their discretion, they could take decisions. The directive principles were given precedence over fundamental rights. Now, please understand this thing. In the Indian Constitution, DPSPs are non-enforceable. And fundamental rights are enforceable. What do we mean by this? Enforceable. You can question, if anyone is abridging your fundamental rights, you can go to the court and, question them. But DPSPs cannot be questioned or reported to the court. But see, considering the point that fundamental rights are enforceable and DPSPs are not enforceable, you will definitely feel, I mean, it's pretty obvious that fundamental rights are more important. That is why we're giving them these enforceable rights, and DPSPs are less important. But what did the government do? What did the Indira Gandhi government do? It gave more priority to DPSPs over fundamental rights. And it said that any law made to this effect by the parliament was kept beyond the scope. Very important. That if we are making a law, try to understand the situation over here. If we are making a law which is going to stick to DPSPs, there are chances that it might abridge some fundamental rights. And if such a thing happens, you cannot go to the court, which is absolutely wrong, because this is not what our constitution said. Our original constitution gave priority to fundamental rights, and fundamental rights are important. You can do it vice versa, that in order to protect the fundamental rights, if in case one or two DPSPs have to be abridged, you can do that. But you cannot abridge a fundamental right to enforce a DPSP. Mrs. Gandhi's government, it took the opposite view, and it went on the other side, and it said that we will give precedence to DPSPs. And in doing so, if FRs are abridged, you cannot go to the court. Court cannot do a review of them, which I told you a while ago that court does. If court finds out, Supreme Court finds out that there is any right, there is any law which is abridging the constitution, the law is declared null and void right then and there. Okay, so this part of the court was taken away by the Indira Gandhi government. Now coming to why did the Janata Party government fall? The Janata Party government, it had members from various parties. Different ideologies had come together, because each party has its own ideology, its own set of beliefs. Those ideologies, they had come together. So it was hard for them to sustain for so long. Okay. And after a certain point of time, we saw internal conflicts among the party members. Okay. So number one reason was the internal conflicts and varying ideologies of the party members. That was number one. Okay. In fighting in ideological differences. Now, what bound these people together was only one thing, that was the anti-Indira sentiment and their desire for power. So, in the next elections that happened, you will see that the propaganda of these people was Indira Hatao. Whereas Indira Gandhi's government, it had its agenda as Garibi Hatao. These were two different things practiced by two different parties. Okay? Mrs. Gandhi had somewhere or the other realized her mistake. What she did during emergency was not supposed to be done. So she apologized later on to the nation. And that's when she got to the power once again as well. But the JP government was corroding within itself. Okay? So what it did right now, it was only bound together by the Indira Hatao sentiment. Jan Sangh, with 90 MPs, it tried to control the other parties in JP. So since it thought that it's the majority party, it is going to control the other parties over here. Okay. Mid 1979, Morarji Desai, he was forced to resign. Okay. And when Morarji Desai resigned, there had to be some member. Morarji Desai resigned, and after him, members left the party. Now a minority government was left. Okay. Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy had to make somebody the leader. So Chaudhary Charan Singh was elected, but he only barely stayed for 2 months. Okay, so he could not sustain the government for long. The partners, the other parties, they withdrew their support. Okay, and this stalled. This particular incident, it stalled the prosecution of emergency era abuses. Right, a few slides ago, I told you that Janata Party government had started looking into the emergency era abuses and prosecuting people. But Since it was facing disruptions within itself, this particular process, it stalled the prosecution of emergency era abuses. And then you saw 1980 elections, Indira Gandhi once again came to power. Okay, this time she came to power for Garibi Hatao. Her propaganda, her election propaganda was Garibi Hatao. That is what she works. If you study the 5-year plans, that's what she works for. Okay, people were already they've already seen Janata Party government that it wasn't able to do anything fruitful much, and as it is, the Janata Party government itself was collapsing now. The parties had withdrawn their support. So Indira Gandhi, she came to power once again in the year 1980, and a few years later, 4 years later, you see 1984, she was assassinated by her bodyguards. Okay, you'll also see that in the prosecution, by the way, Mrs. Gandhi and her son Sanjay Gandhi were also caught of bribery, caught of corruption. So even they were also supposed to be put behind the bars. So all this thing was happening during the JP government, but they weren't able to achieve much because of the fall of the party within a few months. Okay, this was the situation. This was the situation of India, the Indian politics after democracy. Now that Indira Gandhi government has come to power, we'll talk about the burning issue during her time. And the burning issue was Punjab. Let's move to Punjab. And in Punjab, there was a demand for Khalistan. This demand was raised by members, the extremist Punjabis, the Akali Dal members. They raised the demand for a separate state, Khalistan. So this was called a separatist movement. Okay, because they were raising demand for a separate state called Khalistan. Now what happened is that in 1920, Akali Dal had been formed. It was called Punjabi Supa. Okay, 1960s, Haryana and Himachal Pradesh were separated. Formation of Punjab was laid. The actual Punjab that you see today was laid. Okay, 1966, there came a demand for a Punjabi speaking state. From here, we raised the demand. Earlier, they were demanding a Punjabi speaking state. Gradually, they moved towards a separate country itself, the Khalistani movement. See, Akalis, their situation was not really good. Their government was dismissed by the center midway through its term. We already saw how Congress was dismissing the other party governments and how JP was doing the same thing during its rule. Akali's government was dismissed. They did not enjoy strong support among the Hindus. Okay, Hindus were a different thing. These Punjabis were different people. Okay, and the Sikh committee was internally also differentiated on caste and class lines. There were various caste, classes. So they were internally also differentiated, because of which they were, their situation was not a very great one during all this time. So still, the demand, all this actually, their own situation led them to a frustration, and they thought that the government is also not doing anything for us, which just catalyzed the demand for a new state, a separate state. Akalis came to power in the year 1967, and then in 1977 it was a coalition government in Punjab. Okay, Congress got more support among the Dalits, whether it was Hindus or Sikhs, than the Akalis. Okay, the passing of Anandpur Sahib Resolution 1973. Now, Anandpur Sahib Resolution was passed, and this resolution asserted regional autonomy, and it wanted to redefine central-state relationship in the country. You will see that during the year 1967-77, it was Congress which was still enjoying more support. Okay, especially among the Dalits. And 77 onwards, you will see that they also, the thing that was started, the Mandal Commission thing that was started by Janata Party government, even Congress gave priority to this. So Dalits supported Congress more. Okay, whether Hindu or Sikh Dalits, they were supporting Congress more, and Akalis were not getting so much support. Okay, Anandpur Sahib Resolution, I'll tell you in a while what is Anandpur Sahib Resolution. So it was passed in 1973, and it demanded more autonomy for Punjab. Okay, it wanted to also redefine what relation should be there between center and state. 1980, question of distribution of water in Punjab and other states, that jumped up the year 1980. How will you distribute the Indus River water? Not the Indus River water treaty happened with Pakistan, Jhelum. See, Punjab is called the land of five rivers because of the tributaries of Indus jumping in here. So there was this question of how much water should flow in Punjab. Coming to Anandpur Sahib resolution, the resolution, it sought for greater autonomy for the states in India with a demand for more powers to be decentralized to the states. I hope you all know that India, some people have called Indian constitution, Indian country to be amphibian. Even Indian, analysts who have analyzed the Indian constitution, they say that the state of India, it's, unitary, sorry, it's federal, federal in structure, federal in structure, unitary in spirit. So this federalism demands more power for states, greater autonomy, just like the states of the United States. But then we also have a unitary thing. When does the constitution or when does the government assume unitary shape? It's during emergencies most of the times. That though power has been given to states, but center can intervene any time and it can take over the power. So what did Anandpur Sahib resolution demanded for? It demanded for more powers to be given to the states. It called for economic and fiscal autonomy for states, okay, including control over their natural resources, their taxes, and their revenues. Okay, so they also wanted more economic autonomy, more fiscal autonomy. They should have the control over their taxes and resources. This resolution also emphasized the promotion and protection of the regional languages. It aimed to safeguard and promote the distinct identity of the Sikh community, including the protection of religious, social, and cultural rights. So, this Sikh identity had to be protected among all that was going on. And there were also demands related to territorial adjustments. They wanted the state to expand a little more. Okay, though these were not specified in detail in the resolution, but later on you will come to know about these demands. Punjab wanted to incorporate all the Punjabi speaking states to itself, Haryana and Himachal. All it wanted to incorporate in itself. Before we come to Operation Blue Star, so I hope the situation till now is clear that this was the Anandpur Sahib resolution that took place and that was handed over to the government to be implemented during during Mrs. Gandhi's tenure. So this resolution, it does demanded the formation of a proper state which would which would have all the Sikh speaking areas, the Sikh majority areas. Okay, the union will have jurisdiction over the state only with respect to 5 aspects. What were the 5 aspects? They were defense, external affairs, communication was also included as an aspect, posts and telegraphs, then currency, and railway. It said that the central government will have control over these aspects only. The other aspects would be given to the state government. So the whole of union list and a lot of items in the concurrent list, they were all ousted from the control of the central government. Okay. But remember, please, I just told you right now that Akalis, they do not constitute the entire Sikh population. Okay, I told you a while ago that there were certain Sikhs who were supporting Congress more than the Akalis. Okay, so because of this, the Akalis, they failed to win over the President of India and, even the Chief Minister of the state of Punjab to their side. Nobody was supporting the Akalis then. Okay. Um, this led to the Akalis moving towards terrorism. Year 1980, Mrs. Gandhi came to power, right? Now, in 1980s, let's 81, 82, 81, 82. Operation Blue Star was conducted. Not Operation Blue Star this time. Blue Star was conducted in 1984. This time, what happened was that it was suspected. Not suspected. In 1980s, 81, 82, 83, these Akalis, they turned to terrorism and they moved. They had their, what do we say, their residence, or they um, saw shelter in the Golden Temple, Amritsar. So they sought refuge over there, and that's where they were planning all their terrorist activities. They knew that, nobody is going to enter over here thinking that we are doing any such activity over here. So they were quite relaxed over here. They were planning all the terrorist activities. When the Indira Gandhi government came to know about this, she conducted Operation Blue Star. Now, what is this Operation Blue Star? Operation Blue Star, um, it was actually, what happened is, certain army members, army tanks, and military, they went into Gold Temple and they brought out these insurgents or the terrorists. But this bringing out procedure was not a very simple one. You go and catch and bring. Guns were shot. Okay. Tanks were also there. Tanks were also brought. This led to a destruction of the temple property itself. Now, with a temple are associated the feelings and emotions of the community itself. For instance, you're having Jan 22, the grand opening of Ayodhya temple. Okay, so with that particular temple are associated the emotions, the feelings of the Hindu side. Okay, with mosques, we have the emotions of the Muslim side being associated. With churches, we have the Christians whose feelings are associated. So, with any religious place, are associated the feelings and emotions of that particular community. Though the reason was justified, and the entering of military into that place was mandatory because insurgents had to be captured. But simultaneously, what the people felt was also not wrong. There, you are entering a temple with ammunitions. You are attacking the temple. You're destroying the temple property. You're attacking. Open fire is being, started in the temple. So their emotions were also, disturbed. So though the terrorists were captured, but Operation Blue Star resulted into a lot of, damage to Mrs. Gandhi's government, and not the government, but Mrs. Gandhi herself, who was assassinated right after Operation Blue Star, 31st October 1984. Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated by her own Sikh bodyguards. And when did Operation Blue Star happen? It happened in June 1984. Within a span of 4 months, Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated, okay, outside her residence. Justice Nanavati Commission was set up thereafter under the Rajiv Gandhi government. Because Rajiv Gandhi was made to be the prime minister in place of Mrs. Gandhi. She was already dead, and he was the next in line. So he became the prime minister of the country. So Justice Nanavati Commission was set up to look into the matter of this thing, Operation Blue Star and see what has been done. And simultaneously, it also had to look into the matter of one more matter. And that matter was that after the assassination of Indira Gandhi, the political, I cannot say political parties, but you're smart enough to know that any propaganda that is being carried out in the world, it is always started by the political parties themselves. So, not per se political parties, but uh, six all around the world, they were being killed. Any, not world, around India. Anybody with a turban, they were being killed. Okay, because Indira Gandhi, she was a beloved prime minister, and be beloved or not, the main thing has been carried out by the party members, the party in power themselves. They were killing six, and they were killing six everywhere. You'll see the impact of this in areas like, Kanpur, Punjab, North India majorly. So they were being taken hold of, they were captured, and they were killed. For this particular, for all these things, Justice Nanavati Commission was set up. Then you'll also see that July 1985, there was an agreement between Sant Longowal or Harchand Singh Longowal and Rajiv Gandhi, which is called the Longowal Accord or the Punjab Accord. Okay. Next, you will see that, of course, President's rule is put in 1992 elections, and BJP and Akali Dal later on, they are united, but that's a later story, not very important for you all. Okay, this is the Golden Temple. The attacks were done from all the sides. Tanks were brought in to see. Not everything was correct, but I am not at that position to, say whether it was correct or not. Had I been a part of military and, had I been studying all these things, I could have still commented on this. But yeah, whatever is done is done. The damage to Golden Temple. Justice Nanavati Commission. Nanavati Commission said, or Justice Nanavati Commission said, there's also evidence to show that October the 31st, either meetings were held or persons who could organize attacks were contacted and were given instructions to kill six and loot their houses and shops. So this is saying that it was a planned attack on six all over India. The attacks were made in a systematic manner and without much fear of the police, almost suggesting that they were assured that they would not be harmed while committing those acts or even after. So Justice Nanavati Commission practically it's telling you that these attacks which were planned, they were planned in such a manner that those who were committing the attacks, they were reassured that nothing will don't worry, nothing will happen to you. We are there to look after you. Go attack. And when you read these lines, you already understand that it was not, this fear of police cannot be countered by a normal person. It would have been some person in political power. So this is what was done by those members. Okay, an attack, an overall, all country attack was done on 6. Coming to Rajiv Longowal Accord, called the Longowal Accord or the Punjab Accord. Okay. See, under this Longowal Accord, number 1, Chandigarh would be given to Punjab. A Punjabi speaking place would be transferred to Punjab. And compensation to and better treatment of those affected by the militancy in Punjab. So all those who were affected by the militant acts in Punjab during and before Operation Blue Star, they were supposed to be compensated. A separate commission would be appointed. To resolve the border dispute between Punjab and Haryana. The Sarkaria Commission was appointed to resolve the border dispute between Punjab and Haryana. It was also decided, that, some Hindi-speaking areas of Punjab would be transferred to Haryana in lieu of Chandigarh. Okay. And by the way, this accord also recognized the religious, the territorial, and the economic demands of the Sikhs, which were thought to be non-negotiable considering the Indira Gandhi non-negotiable under the Indira Gandhi's tenure. So Mrs. Gandhi's tenure, some decisions were not being taken by her, which Rajiv Gandhi said that of course I'll go ahead and see. Then Armed Forces Special Powers Act, AFSPA, that had been applied in Punjab, Operation Blue Star, and thereafter, it was supposed to be withdrawn from Punjab. Okay. There was also supposed to be a tribunal which was to be set up to look into the sharing of Ravi Bias river water among Punjab, Haryana, and Rajasthan. So all this was decided under Rajiv Longowal Accord. Okay, this was the Rajiv Longowal Accord, which came after both the parties reached a conclusion. But why did the Rajiv Longowal Accord fail? Number one, there was no case submitted to the Sarkaria Commission. Punjab Authority practically failed to submit its case to Sarkaria Commission. And the commission, which was appointed to find out the Hindi speaking areas in Punjab, okay, which were to be given to Haryana in lieu of Chandigarh, that also failed to do its work, okay, because of repeated objections by the Punjab government. The Maan group, which was elected to the parliament in November 1980, that raised new demands every single day, thus referring, it practically did not allow any any one demand to sustain long. So the government also could not understand what exactly do they want. Okay. Once again, I told you, elections were held in Punjab in 1992 and Congress government was once again formed. Okay. Now, one thing you will see as a result of all this was that formation of Congress government did happen. But that formation did one thing. A formation of Congress government and the unfulfillment of the demands of these leaders, Khalistani led to the formation of this Khalistani people who flew away from India. They were not there in India, but they migrated to different states. And you already saw how much Khalistan has been in news. Because majority of them migrated to Canada. Canada has a majority of them. Prime Minister Trudeau is totally in support of the Khalistani people because his party is the majority because of these people. And if he's not looking into the rights of these people, then his party might collapse one way or the other in a few years, in a few days rather. So the Canada situation, which was in news nowadays, that is also, bringing or making this particular instance, the Khalistani instance, important. Punjab sorted. Now we move to Northeast. Before we jump to Northeast, try to understand one thing. Northeast has been subjected to a lot of controversies, if I can say that, though I don't think I can say that, but yeah, something like controversies. So ever since, independence of India. Number one, our Indian mainland, though Northeast is a part of the mainland, but the rest of the states are connected to the Northeast through Siliguri corridor. Okay, the chicken's neck. It's called the chicken's neck. It's a very small, narrow stretch of land which connects the rest of the India to Northeast. Now, as a result of this, Northeastern states have seen less development over time. Another thing, the Northeastern states share their borders with a lot of countries. Bangladesh, Myanmar, Nepal, okay, China. So Northeastern states have also seen influx of refugees time and again. Okay, so these are few important things you need to know. Like during the time of Bangladesh war, we saw that refugees were coming in the Northeastern states to take a refuge. So all this problem and the persistent refugee problems has led to a lot of crisis in Northeast. Okay. Now we jump to, of course, Northeast. Tripura, Manipur, Khasi hills of Meghalaya, they were erstwhile princely states. Okay. You need to understand 1963, Nagaland became a part of India. 72, Manipur, Tripura, and Meghalaya also became a part of India. Then 87, Mizoram and Arunachal became a part of India. But all these regions saw development problem, I told you a while ago, and migrant problems. And they have a vast international border, once again, and a weak communication with the rest of India. So the situation of Northeast has been a very sensitive one. Now coming to the issues that dominate the politics of Northeast. Northeastern states have constantly led to the demand of more autonomy. More autonomy means they want to make their own rules, self-rule. Okay, so autonomy means, self-rule. Northeastern people, they wanted that since government of India is not focusing much on us, we want our own rule. Okay, and the aim of this autonomy was not only to bring the change in the system, but it was also to come up with legitimate expressions of the people of the country, of the people of Northeast, because they had distinct culture, they had distinct tradition, and being distinct from the rest of the state, they had a common pattern of living among themselves. We saw the Sino-India conflict 1962, and after that I told you that, see, in the Sino-India conflict I told you that Indian government was not building a road in the northeastern frontier province, fearing that Chinese army would be able to easily come through this particular road. So they were not building a road over here. But after the war of 1962, they recognized the importance of coming to development on this side also. Okay? See, and that too, northeastern side, if there was any ethnic group which was considered as anti-national, that became a security problem. Northeastern side, even during the British colonial period, it was treated separately from the British India. Okay, so it has already always felt separated, felt isolated from the rest of the India. But this was now becoming a problem. Okay, there was a sense of incompatibility in the northeastern side, and this was creating a feeling of resentment to be a part of India. Okay, you will see that even before independence, there were several indigenous cultural and political organizations that were there in the hill areas of northeast, and even after independence, they were also there. And after independence, they began with their political activities. Okay, they went into more protests and agitations, which led to movements for secession. Separatist demands were also raised. Opposition to outsiders is the refugee problem. So all of this was happening in the northeastern side. Okay. There were certain minority groups, they wanted a separate state out of Assam. So basically giving autonomy to one made the other side come for more autonomy. This is what was happening in northeast. At independence, the entire region except Manipur and Tripura, they comprised the state of Assam. Everything was part of Assam. So they were demanding that Assam be separated and Manipur and Tripura be separated. Eastern Indian Tribal Union, it had an all-party hill leaders conference in 1960, and later on you also saw carving of states from Assam. Which states were carved out from Assam? Meghalaya, Mizoram, Arunachal Pradesh. They were carved out from Assam. Even after 1972, you will see that in Assam, communities like Bodos, Karbis, Dimsas, they still want more separation from Assam. Now imagine we keep on, separating states. All this raised public movements and insurgency in the country. But Assam, there were already so many states carved out from Assam. Now you want more states to be carved out from this region. Assam will not be left with anything, and there will be a lot of administration problem considering the northeast. Okay. So the Rajiv Gandhi government It talked to the northeastern people. Karbis and Dimsas, they have been granted autonomy under the district councils. And Bodos were granted autonomy under the autonomous councils. They had their own autonomous councils, they had their own district councils. But the government of India said, that's all we can do for you. Nothing beyond that. Your tribal areas, we are giving you district councils, autonomous councils, but nothing beyond that can be done for all of you. So this was done for Assam. But there was constant demand from the other sides for a separate country. Like Mizo Hill areas, it was made an autonomous district within Assam. Okay? People were happy with the Mizo Hills areas giving the autonomy. But once again struck the 1959 famine in Mizo Hills. People saw that, government of India is not helping much. It's not providing us much resources. So a secessionist movement gained popularity. Foundation of Mizo National Front was laid under the leadership of the leader Lal Denga. He was the newly elected CM of Mizoram, because later on Rajiv Gandhi intervened, okay? And he said that we are giving you a right for a particular state, we are giving you some autonomy. Please work with that autonomy. Lal Denga practically agreed to it. You jump to Nagaland. Angami Zafu Fizo, he was leading the movement in Nagaland, where Nagas were practically, Nagas, a section of Nagas, they had already declared independence from India back in 1951. So now they wanted to be separate from the Indian mainland. The Naga National Council, which launched an armed struggle for sovereignty of Nagas, it was also at play. And Nagaland problem is a persisting problem. Things with Nagaland haven't changed. Okay, be it the formation of a Naga National Council, or any negotiation with Nagaland has not actually worked out for us. So Naga Hill is a still disturbed area. Okay, initially you will see that Fizo, he escaped to East Pakistan, then he went to London when military pressure was put on him. Later on, Naga National Council also, though it followed a separatist course, it also declared the establishment of federal government of Nagaland. There was no proposal that Rajiv Gandhi put which was acceptable to them. Okay, insurgencies were very common over there, and moderates and extremist groups were formed over there. Yeah, so later on you will see that even the Jawaharlal Nehru government, let alone the Rajiv Gandhi government, came later, very late. The Jawaharlal Nehru government could also not settle problem with them. Okay, so Naga problem still persists. But there was a section of Nagas. How did the secessionist movement die? Because there was a certain section of Nagas which was happy with the Nagaland state. And that's how the Nagaland problem, it, died altogether. Now, the problem in Assam, see, try to understand that Assam is a small state. People living in the state, they have limited resources, limited modes of livelihood, limited houses. And in view of all this, it is not possible for them to share these resources. But what happened? That any problem in the neighboring country led the influx of refugees to Assam, or to these areas, to the northeastern states, which was a huge problem for Assam itself. It had limited resources. How can it feed these refugees coming into it? Be it the Rohingyas, be it the Bangladesh refugees, they were all jumping into Assam itself. So they were seen as encroachers on scarce resources. There was a movement in Assam in 1979 to 1985. Okay, it was held in light of the widespread poverty and unemployment because of this in Assam. In 1979, All Assam Student Union was formed. Okay, it led an anti-foreigner movement in Assam. Later on, you will also see Assam Accord we'll discuss Assam Accord in a while. Rajiv Gandhi signed an Assam Accord with the All Assam Students Union, and a little bit peace was brought to the politics in Assam, but the problem of immigration was not solved. And you will see right now the coming of NRC and CAA. This thing is once again coming to news. For Tripura also, you will see that there are so many refugees in Tripura. The original inhabitants, they have been reduced to being a minority. in their own land because of the Chakma refugees. Because of the refugees in Tripura and the Chakma refugees in Mizoram and Arunachal Pradesh. The refugee problem is a very big problem when it comes to Assam. You will also see that before the signing of Assam Accord, there was this Illegal Immigrants Determination by Tribunals Act 1983 signed. Why was it signed? The reason was that there was a lot of violence and agitation being done during, not a lot of, though the movement was practically peaceful earlier, but the Nelly massacre was a kind of a violent movement. Earlier, Assams were, in face of elections, they were just declaring band. They were not allowing the people to, file their nomination papers in the Brahmaputra Valley. So this act was passed. It was implemented in Assam. There were negotiations that took place between people, between the ministers, between the central and the state. Okay, formal talks had been, started, and that's when we signed the Assam Accord. Okay. See, but one thing that Assam itself forgot, that there were people from West Bengal, there were people from Bihar who were also going to Assam. Okay, they were going for work purposes. But Assam was very apprehensive of these people also. But these people do have the right to settle anywhere in the country, right? They have the right to they have the right to, migrate and, go to any city, state. They could reside in any place they want to. Anti-foreigner movement that was against illegal migration, against domination of Bengalis and other outsiders. I told you that they forgot that these people were there to work. And of course, it was against the faulty voters register, because this register included the names of immigrants also. So the demand was that all these outsiders should go back. Which outsiders? Which had entered into the state after 1951, please send them back. We don't want any refugees in Assam. This movement, it gathered a lot of support, but there were, tragic and violent incidents also. Lines were being blocked. Movement of train, supply of oil was being blocked from Assam to Bihar. All these things were done, but then Assam Accord was signed with Rajiv Gandhi, and finally it was declared that those foreigners who migrated to Assam during and after Bangladesh war, they were to be identified and sent back. Their names will not be in the voters register. And then All Assam Students Union and the Assam Gana Sangram Parishad, that united to form the Assam Gana Parishad together, the leading party then in Assam. Okay. Their target was to make a golden Assam, which was free of any refugee crisis. So this was all that was, done in Assam. The influx of refugees still became a huge problem, the coming of Rohingyas in the modern times. But still, all this still laid some, foundation of what could the other leaders do. And also, simultaneously, people understood that the northeastern area is a sensitive area. The government understood that northeastern area is a sensitive area to be dealt with care. Okay? So that is pretty much it. We discussed about Assam, we discussed about Punjab, and we talked about democratic phase after during and after 1977. That's pretty much it for the lesson. Any questions? Do let us know.